Moving on to another story that's coming in. Reportedly, the release of Israeli hostages has been released. Around 20 Israeli hostages believed to be alive are expected to be freed within a few hours as part of the first phase of the US brokered ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. In return, Israel is set to release nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump is heading to Israel, where he will meet Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and address the Knesset. He is also expected to meet some of the hostage families. Later, Trump will travel to Egypt to attend an international summit on Gaza's future, joined by leaders from more than 20 countries, including France's Emmanuel Macron and Britain's Keir Starmer. The hostages being released include several abducted from the Nova Music Festival near Kibbutz Reem, and many of them were also taken from the Kibbutz Reem near the Gaza border, including twins Gali and Ziv Berman and brothers Ariel and David Cuneo, who were abducted with their families. 2 of the hostages are Israeli soldiers, while 4 foreign nationals are also among those held, including a Nepalese student and 3 Asian workers. Israeli authorities say 26 hostages have been formally declared dead, and the fate of 2 others remain unknown. Hamas has indicated that retrieving the bodies of some hostages may take time, as not all burial sites have been located. All right, so that's breaking inputs coming in from the Israel-Gaza war, where release of hostages is expected soon. Joining me on the broadcast is Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev. He's a former diplomat. Karori Singh, who is a foreign affairs expert. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast, and we appreciate your time. I would like to bring in Ambassador Sachdev on this story first. Ambassador, I would like to understand, this is a very historic moment right now. We are going to see the release of hostages finally after so many years. Entire Israel is waiting with bated breath in Tel Aviv.
Yes, that's quite, what you said is quite true, but I would like to be slightly cautious about long waged war, which is running into its second year plus plus second week. I would be, while we expect the hostages to be released today, and President Trump would obviously be credited with that release after having fostered a 20-point program. But this is just the first phase. The more important and substantive phases are yet to be decided upon. There are various contentious points, such as Hamas's refusal to disarm and disavow its political role. It has quickly stepped into the area that has been vacated by IDF and tried to assert its control over Gaza City, killing some Israeli proxy tribals. So all that told, we need to wait for dust to settle down. Hostage release is the most traumatic part that is going to end, and families would rejoice. Israel would have less reasons to continue with its presence in Gaza, and perhaps de-escalation and normalcy can return. But then substantive peace in Gaza and West Bank, as well as in wider Middle East, is still long way off.
Absolutely. Karori Singh, there are obviously some important sticking points in the 20-point peace plan that has been framed over here. But coming to the historic moment that's happening in front of us, and in fact, people are stating that the Red Cross teams are on the spot in Gaza. They are waiting with medical teams as well in order to rescue those people who have been held hostages for so many years, and we do not know under what conditions. So clearly there are medical teams on the spot. Israel is also on alert. It has some helicopters placed right outside the Gaza Strip in order to fly them for emergency medical treatment if required.
You see that there are four architects of this agreement: United States, Qatar, Turkey, or Egypt. With the consultation of Palestinian Authority, Hamas, and the government of Israel. Government of Israel was somewhat reluctant, and then the President Trump told to the Prime Minister Netanyahu that you cannot fight against the whole world, so you shall have to be agree. But despite the fact there are still differences within the Hamas, within the Palestinian Authority, and within the Israeli government. And that is why President Trump is addressing the Israeli parliament and meeting the Israeli cabinet as well. And thereafter he will be visiting Saram al so the problem is now the agreement is in three phases. First phase has three components. First is the release of hostages and prisoners, hostages from Hamas side and prisoners from Israeli side. But Israel has categorically refused that hardcore terrorist, the Hamas member, which is in the Israeli custody, we will not release that leader of the Hamas. Similarly, the Hamas is agreed to release on the pursuance of Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey. So the release of the hostages and prisoners may take place. The second aspect of it is the ceasefire. The ceasefire has already taken place, and Israeli forces have withdrawn to some extent, not all. And the third is that provide the aid to the displaced people. So the aid process is also going on. So first phase is going towards the right direction. But the problem, however, is the second phase, because both Hamas and the government of Israel are not party to the agreement. It is prepared by the architects, and they are imposing this agreement. So there are so many doubts and suspicions about this agreement. So if it is successful, it is the good. Whole world is in support of this agreement. Even the Russia, China, India, all these countries are supporting the agreement if peace is brought in. But I don't think peace will be restored without, because the second phase is about the redevelopment and governance. So about the redevelopment and governance without the recognition of two-state solution, how can be the redevelopment and governance aspect? Because there is the institutional provision in the agreement to have the expert technocrat and expert group to govern at the ground. And then there is the Board of Peace headed by the President Trump, and Tony Blair will look after the Board of Peace. And the third one is the redevelopment exercise. So all these institutional mechanisms have been anticipated, but how they will work without the direct involvement of the government of Israel and the Hamas, because Israel doesn't want any role for Hamas. And even the Palestinian Authority is not given some role. Only experts cannot govern, because it's an inherently political issue. And political issue cannot be resolved exclusively by experts and a political group. Though the agreement has anticipated a task force to monitor the agreement conditions at this point of time. But I don't think it will be successful enough without bringing Palestinian Authority, Hamas, and the government of Israel on board. So that second phase is more complicated, So I don't think that after the second phase and the third phase they will be completed successfully. I do have so many doubts and suspicions. Right.
Absolutely, sir. I'd like to rope in Ambassador Sachdev again into the discussion. Ambassador Sachdev, we have been hearing reports that Hamas will in fact release these hostages in phases. There are 20 people, the 20 who they will release, but they will be releasing them in phases and from different locations. Is this a strategic decision on part of the Hamas? Could you help our viewers understand why they are doing so?
I think this is the psychological warfare being waged. Israel has maintained that it has decimated much of the Hamas, and Hamas is no longer in control and is not a fighting force anymore. This to get around the woe that Prime Minister Netanyahu has taken to have Hamas obliterated altogether and have no role in future of Gaza and to threaten Israel anymore. So now by releasing these hostages in batches from various locations, I think Hamas is trying to show that it remains in control. It has a cadre of loyal soldiers and officials that can organize things. And in the past too, whenever hostages were released, there was a public spectacle made with thousands of Gazans being present and hostages made to speak and thank their captors, etc., etc. This is also for the consumption of Israeli public, which would be waiting with bated breath for the release. So I think it has also got to be linked with the 2,000 Palestinian prisoners to be released. They're not going to be released simultaneously. So given the lack of trust between Israel and Hamas, I think these batches-wise release of hostages and prisoners and the dead bodies of those who have collapsed during the imprisonment or hostage keeping would probably be necessary, but it's being exploited to drive home the point that Israel has not defeated Hamas and it is still around.
Absolutely, Ambassador Sachdev. I think Hamas is trying to prove a really pertinent point over here, that it is not bowing down to pressure from the global players, and it is maintaining its stance. However, the safe release of hostages is what everyone wants, including in Israel. Mr. Singh, I'd like to bring you in. You have been mentioning some points that the second and the third part of the peace plan might not work out as per your understanding. However, early in the morning we heard US President Donald Trump, who is right now headed towards Israel. He is stating that the war in Gaza is over. As per him, now only the administration and we'll just chalk out a plan how to govern Gaza, and that's all that is left. Do you really think this is the end of the war, which has been lasting since so long?
You see, it's the wishful thinking. Everyone wishes that war should end and peace must be restored in this part of the Middle East. But when we have an understanding of the political dynamics and the knowledge of history, the things are more complicated, not as simple as we think. Because from the US side, the architects were Trump's son-in-law Kushner and the Witkoff. Both are the real estate dealers. So negotiation is not a real estate dealing. It's the political and social as well. And in the 20 points, there is a one point about the dialogue of faith. About the faith, Israel has a belief that they are the chosen people and the Hamas people are the pariah. that sort of attitude is from the Israeli side. Similarly, the Palestinians have the right to self-determination and it's their homeland. So the problem is the perception of both the sides, how to bring this perception into convergence. That is the problem. And since the Palestinian Authority, Hamas, they are not taken into picture at this stage in the negotiating process, though they were consulted. Similarly, within the Israeli government, there are wide differences. Then Israel's defense minister and Israel's finance minister, they are not agree in totality of this agreement. So the differences within the Israel and within the Palestinian Authority and Hamas are well obvious. And given the situation, Israel has made some settlement in the West Bank, and the West Bank is disconnected from the Eastern Jerusalem. So how these things will be connected, that is the problem. And there is no mention in this agreement about the West Bank and the Eastern Jerusalem, how the process will go ahead. So the things are not clear enough. But this is the good sign that the hostages are being released and prisoners are being released. A congenial environment is being created to move ahead. But I doubt, in keeping in mind the long history of this crisis and the perceptions of both the sides, so deep-rooted perception is more determined. And in fact, the loss in Gaza is immense.
Absolutely,
UN
sir.
has reported.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for those valuable insights. I thank both my guests for joining us on the broadcast. That's all we have for you on this bulletin. We'll slip into a short break.